we were talking to Adidas as like literally couple month old companies. It's no longer an illiquid JPEG. Okay, well, who's your counterparty? Who are you going to sell that to? Well, if every item is collateralized, you no longer have to worry about that. Or do I want to like risk it and make this crazy comic book backed by fractionalized CryptoPunks, and if it doesn't sell, I lose all that money that I had made, and I don't have a job because I just I just passed on Amazon. So uh, I went all in again, and it worked.
Welcome to Beneath the Layers by Offchain Labs. I'm your host, Hunter, and today we're speaking with GFunk, CEO and wearer of many hats at Pixelvault. In this episode, we'll be speaking about entrepreneurship, his part in the rise of NFTs, and of course, how he plans on taking on-chain gaming to the next level with Reboot. Without further ado, let's get into it. Sean, thank you for coming on today. Very excited to have you
Happy to
here.
be here.
Yes. I think we're gonna very easy place to start off is I just called you Sean. I think the title is probably gonna have you as GFunk. Why the
Right,
name? Why
right.
the name GFunk? Sean, I assume is your real name, so why GFunk?
Yes. So the G in G Funk is associated with my last name, which is Garin. And I was really into West Coast hip hop growing up. So Nate, Snoop, Warren G, 213. In their raps, they talk about sort of the rise of the G Funk sound. And when Nate and Warren G got together, it was in 1986, which is my year of birth. And so the G Funk sound and the G Funk era, uh, I sort of correlate to my own era coming into existence. So that's G Funk era 86, which is my handle. And it's sort of an homage to uh, Regulate and Nate
Regulate,
and Warren G. Yeah.
dude. The
All time classic.
dude, I love. And, I was born in the East Coast, but I love West Side Connection, Warren G especially. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
I've
that's
actually
so
seen
funny.
Dub C in concert. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
What,
I grew up in
dude?
LA, so I was
Okay.
around a lot of this stuff.
And it's so funny too
Yeah.
because literally, I on Twitter, my pseudonym, my name is B Fresh, and that's more for like that's just my b boy name. I used to break dance kind of back, maybe a couple years ago.
Awesome.
So when I saw G Funk, I'm like, either this guy he likes hip hop or he used to break dance.
Yeah.
One of the two.
I unfortunately I could never break dance, but that's awesome that you could. Yeah, no, just a hip hop fan. Um, really dating back to probably late elementary school. I don't know how I got into it. Actually, uh, I was getting off of the school bus in like maybe
Okay.
fourth grade, and I found like one of the older kids' CD cases, but I didn't know whose it was. And it had like the OG Coolio album with Gangsta's Paradise.
Dang.
It had Snoop Dogg Doggy Style album, and so I started listening to this older kid's music, and then I just got hooked to hip hop.
That's sick. I love that.
Interesting origin story to like getting into rap music, right? Finding some
Oh, of
older
course.
kid's CD case.
That's dope. That's
Yeah,
definitely like the start of a movie, by the way. 100%. Could be a great start
yeah,
to a movie.
for sure. If only I became a rapper, it would have made even more sense. But
Yeah.
perfect for this. I mean, Twitter handle.
The rise of the Twitter handle. Um,
Exactly.
so before we do get into the crypto stuff, um, maybe can you give us an idea of like what your life was like before entrepreneurship, like kind of working that 9 to 5 life, and then
hmm
just generally speaking, like what about the idea of entrepreneurship got you interested?
hmm Yeah, I'd say it's really just been a part of my DNA since I was a little kid. One, I've always been a collector, and that lean towards collecting was always somewhat financially motivated. So I was really into baseball, basketball cards when I was a kid, and I had the Beckett magazine completely memorized front to back. I could tell you what any card was worth. I was obsessed. It was a strange kid, I guess. Um, and also on weekends, in order to feed this baseball, basketball card addiction, I would find little sort of like entrepreneurial businesses, whether it was like selling sodas on the 17th hole of the golf course or going door to door selling stuff. I had like a red wagon as like I want to say like a second grader growing up in the valley outside Los Angeles in 100+ degree heat. My stepmom at one point had a business selling like jelly, like tropical jelly. And when that went under, she had all this excess inventory that was just going to go to waste. Our family was like sick of it. And I asked her if I could have it. And I literally dragged that behind me in 100+ degree heat, just selling it door to door. And the people in this neighborhood were so impressed by, I don't know, my entrepreneurial spirit, the fact that I was out there by myself as like a second grader, that they would pay me like ridiculous amounts for this jelly, like $20 for a thing of jelly just because they wanted to tip me. And, they like respected the hustle. So of course I dumped it all back into baseball cards. But that's just how I've been since birth. I've always really had a very active mind trying to figure out new ways to create businesses, find opportunity. I just find it enjoyable. And so in college, I was working in banking. I started as a bank teller early in college, and I became a licensed banker by the end of college. And myself and all of my friends were working in Newport Beach, California. A lot of money around there, a lot of money to be made, at least fresh out of college. A lot, obviously in crypto terms now sounds a little strange, but like we were, making like six figures, like as we were graduating college, just working in these bank branches, selling checking accounts, credit cards, getting people to invest, mortgages, whatever it was. And I was one of California's top performers at Chase. I was like a whale hunter. I wouldn't harass people about open a credit card, but all the wealthy people would want to come to me because they knew I would take like really good care of them. They could call me up. I would do stuff for them. I wouldn't hassle them, but when it came time to like ask for big business, they felt comfortable giving it to me. And I remember, 1 month I finished like number one in the state of California. And the way sales cycles go, okay, my whole pipeline basically hit in 1 month, like all the big accounts I had been working on. And the next month, like the higher ups at Chase, my branch manager, et cetera, they're like, oh, hey, Sean, like, what's going on? Your numbers look a little bit low. And I realized at that point that like, I was just a number to them. I was F158359. I still remember my corporate ID. And really that was the moment that I knew that I did not want to be a part of like the corporate America cog. Right now, everybody's talking about these Coinbase ads that speak to a lot of the problems in our society for people our age and younger. Like the American dream has kind of fallen apart. And that was the moment where I realized it. So at the time I went back to law school, was going to pursue a JD MBA. And my second year, instead of starting my MBA, I started my first business. And it was sort of, it was very, very early to what would become now really universally known in the entertainment world, but this idea of a virtual production office. Everything behind the scenes in Hollywood is very pen and paper. And so I was just bringing that into the digital age. And, near acquisition, deal fell apart. And I found myself 1 week later driving Uber, from like almost a millionaire at age 26 to driving Uber like a week later. And that you really have to have that mindset where you're okay with that. In my opinion, to be a successful entrepreneur.
Right.
I shared a clip. I'm forgetting exactly who said it. Oh, it was what's his name? Sam Altman, I want to say, was talking about how the number one thing you need more so than intelligence is just relentlessness to
Exactly.
create a successful business. And I say all the time, be a cockroach. And honestly, the only reason I'm on this podcast today is because, you know, we had tremendously successful last bull run, and then there have been some really hard times for the last couple of years. My public sentiment is obviously very uh, tied alongside the asset prices in our ecosystem, and
Right.
some people are forgiving for that which is outside of my control. Some people think it's all within my control. And, you know, you just have to roll with the punches, the good with the bad. But I knew that I really wanted to work in something that I enjoyed and something that where, you know, your skill, your creativity was rewarded. And I've found that in startups, and I've either founded, um, I've been like a first couple employees or founded several businesses at this point. Um, and you learn a lot more in your failures than you do your successes typically. It takes a very unique person to really, really, really acutely analyze why they were successful.
Right.
Because a lot of times the answer is, okay, you did some things right, but a lot of it is luck, timing, right place, right time, right connections. There's a lot more than just intelligence that goes into, you know, 99% of success stories. So yeah, again, my interests aligned with the market. I had sort of this unique confluence of where I started this story with Chase. Um, I had gone back to business school at Duke at the start of really like coming out of COVID. My previous startup was in the cybersecurity space, and we were doing a lot of business on Amazon. There was a physical hardware device. It was like a whole home VPN type device. And when Amazon shut down accepting all goods other than, you know, the personal protective equipment and food and supplies for COVID, it really hurt a lot of small businesses that rely on Amazon. Um, and so went back to school, and interestingly enough, through Duke, one of my fellow students, he had an interesting opportunity arise at Amazon, and like right as I had to make the decision between throwing caution to the wind again, I wasn't making any money at the time,
Right.
and going all in on Pixel Vault. And of course, at this point, I had had a pretty solid run in crypto. I've talked about this before, but it started with like 20K in October, November of 2020. And by May, when we were launching Punk's comic, it was probably like 500, 600,000. Um, and so it was, okay, do I want to go back to working full time corporate
Right.
America for Amazon, or do I want to like risk it and make this crazy comic book backed by fractionalized CryptoPunks? And if it doesn't sell, I lose all that money that I had made, and I don't have a job because I just I just passed on Amazon. So uh, I went all in again, and
Very
it
nice.
worked.
Okay, so I think this is perfect segue, by the way. Um, I think on a lot of the conversations that I tend to have in these podcasts, we always end up talking about 2017 somehow, some way, 2017, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the rise of NFTs and CryptoPunks in particular did not happen until the bull run after, which was the previous one.
Right.
Maybe give me a little bit of your perspective on that, because I remember being involved in that little rise too. I had my own punk. I remember Punk's comic very,
Mm-hmm.
very particularly, but please give me your perspective
Mm-hmm.
on that.
Yeah. So going a couple cycles back, tying to my love for sports, I actually got into crypto through sports betting. That
Mm,
became sort of the go-to route for people to
Degen.
deposit, withdraw money. Yeah. So like 2013, 2014. And now, unfortunately, I was betting with it, taking money out, doing entrepreneurial endeavors. If I had just held the Bitcoin that I was using, God knows, like the price
Of
had
course.
to have been so low. I probably wouldn't have had to have this job. But unfortunately, I was trading it, using it, and all of that. And, my interest has never gone away. But of course, like everyone else, during the extended bear markets previously, you sort of fall back into your everyday life, get into other things. 2017 obviously was a lot of fun, piqued my interest, made some money, put it into a business, and then I remember I had just started looking at NFTs, and um, there was a moment with Top Shot where Jonathan Bales, Peter Jennings, those guys bought a John Morant moment on Top Shot for like $35,000. And I was like, what? Uh, this seems crazy. And I know actually I think Bales had like a big thread or like a news, like I think he might have had a newsletter at the time or like a blog where he broke down his analysis. And it made a lot of sense coming from just the pure card collector standpoint. But thinking about those video clips, like imagine how powerful it would be if you had some level of IP rights to the clip on an NBA Top Shot card. Now, of course, they would be a lot more expensive and the NBA would never allow it. But I tracked down a tweet. I think I was talking to Peter and actually my co-founder at Pixel Vault alongside Beanie, Sports Cheetah, who came from the sports betting world. I just highlighted the fact like, wow, this could be really powerful if there was some sort of intellectual property right associated with the NFT. And that was really the nexus of what would become Pixel Vault, and that entire bull run, I'd say, was pretty much side by side alongside Bored Ape Yacht Club. There was a push for people to get intellectual property rights with their NFTs. There was a big conversation surrounding CryptoPunks and the Nifty license that they had, which limited commercial use of the NFT to $100,000 a year. And the stimulus for Punk's comic was, I was seeing people like G Money and Seed Phrase and DC Investor and Beanie and D's and all these kind of guys were starting to build brands around their CryptoPunk. And so coming from the entertainment space, I thought, wow, like this is interesting and potentially really powerful. What if we could use storytelling as a way to drive value to these assets? Just like D's, his persona has now made his CryptoPunk incredibly valuable. We're doing that via these comics illustrated by Chris Wall. And so we bought up this collection of 16 CryptoPunks, led by Beanie's famous CryptoPunk, put them in a vault with fractional.art, Andy 8052's company at the time, which has, RIP Fractional. It is now gone. But when you bought the comic, you could stake it for your proportional share of this vault of the 16 CryptoPunks that inspired the story. So we've really tried to take very innovative approaches to exploring all this stuff. DAOs, burning staking mechanisms. We were the first group to ever do a mint pass. The very first mint pass was ours with the MetaHero collection. And in doing that, sometimes it'll be a big hit, a la mint pass, or sometimes it won't work. And so we've had our swings, we've had our misses, but fortunately we are still here, and great to see the ecosystem pumping again and everybody excited for the game that we built. And yeah, things are looking up.
I gotta say, like, there's something to be said about, you mentioned it earlier, like the combination of factors that come into something that you're launching becoming a success. So I mean, the last bull run, obviously, NFTs really kind of saw their, let's just call it the product market fit for the bull run, right? Um,
Hmm.
but if you think about it, like, what about CryptoKitties, huh? 2017, late 2017, they
Right.
really showed Ethereum, yeah, hey, you got to scale, right?
I mean, Dapper, unfortunately, made the same mistake twice.
Yeah,
They flooded the supply
yeah,
with CryptoKitties just like they did with Top Shot.
yeah.
But obviously, they've really been ahead of trends. I think that there was something special as it scaled into this most recent bull run. You know, you really started to see some high value assets emerging. CryptoPunks obviously went on a run, and part of the stimulus for Punk's comic was my thought: who who could spend 8 ETH on an NFT? I think when we
Right.
started buying the Punks for the collection, they were like 6 ETH, 8 ETH floor.
What?
Um, like who could spend that much on an NFT? And so I thought, okay, great. Like we fractionalize them. All these people want access to this historic collection. Great. So you own a fractional share of this very valuable asset. And maybe fractionalization sees its day once NFTs um, become a much more mature asset class. But unfortunately, it was a bit ahead of its time. It's still a cool concept nonetheless.
Totally. Oh, 100%. And it's so funny because, like, I remember, and you mentioned CryptoPunk floor being at six to eight ETH. I was only able to acquire one punk, and it was at 18 ETH. And I remember it
Mm-hmm.
going up to 19, and I'm like, oh, should I spend the rest of my ETH to get this punk? But in my head, I'm like, no, the goal is an Ethereum validator. And
Right.
you know,
Exactly. You were
I
getting closer.
I know I should have
Yeah.
got it, but all that to say that I remember the fractionalization stuff. I remember, like, I think it was Party App or Party.app or something, where it
Mm-hmm.
was like something
Yep.
similar, but it's like, I guess it made it a little more fun.
Mm-hmm.
People can kind of talk. But yeah, dude, I
Right.
think it's
And
one of
I
those
think
things.
I think through Party they bought a zombie at one point.
That's what I remember. Yes, and actually had some of the
Yeah.
tokens. I don't know where those tokens are.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's part of the problem with fractionalization is, people like to see the value going up. And this is the problem with DAOs also. Unless it's physically in your possession where you can monetize it directly, um, something gets lost in translation. And so you see groups like Flamingo um, continue to
Mm,
amass these amazing collections. Like they just went on a crazy buying spree. But that's like a very solid group of like minded, long term investors. And when you sort of gather together these groups of people who don't necessarily have the same goals and throw them together in a DAO that has a bunch of assets, naturally there's a ton of infighting. Everyone wants to do something differently. We've sort of experienced this the hard way, though our founders DAO, which you could get you could get access to for burning a Punk's Comic One, is still around, very strong. The DAO token itself isn't worth what it once was. Still above mint, though, might I add. But yeah, I mean, it got up to, I don't know, 5, 10 ETH in the last bull run and has a ton of amazing assets that are going to be of significant value in this next stage of Pixel Vault as we help launch the Reboot Protocol, have the game, battle plan. They have just like a ridiculous wealth of resources to convert to the GG token and
nice.
brawlers in the game. And so I think they're set up for success. But in order for this DAO, in my mind, to succeed, we took a really strong stance in making sure it was decentralized. It's its own organization, completely distinct from Pixel Vault. I have no more say than any of the other DAO token holders. Um, they they have really active members who function in sort of like a administrative perspective, and they've had to endure absolutely horrible bear market conditions to really purge people that weren't a fit from this collective. And now, they've emerged the other side, and I feel like they have a really strong sense of direction at this point. So, um, DAOs, fractionalization, all of this stuff has definitely gone through the ringer over the last couple of years. DAOs are certainly not as in vogue now as they were in the 2021 bull run, but interesting things to mess around with in any case.
Well, I will say that one thing that I think really shook the entire industry at the time was the partnership that you guys did with Adidas, or
Mm-hmm.
Punk's comic, right? Can you
Punk's
break
comic with
down like
Adidas, yeah.
what happened there for
Yeah,
everyone?
that was crazy. Sure. So, yeah, Ben Mayer White worked at Adidas, and at the time, I knew G Money. Um, G Money had started talking to Ben. Ben was a collector of Punk's comic, a big fan of what we were trying to do with IP. He reached out to me. G Money, and I started this conversation where we wanted to try to sort of bring a large sort of cultural iconic brand into the space in a way that was authentic, because most of what you see falls flat. It's too corporate. There, uh, it always reminds me of the really funny now sort of like relentlessly memed conversation between Pepsi and Budweiser, and it's like,
Oh my
lag me,
God, yeah,
brand friend. Uh, yeah, like you don't
right,
want that.
right.
So
That was the top.
Adidas, to their credit, I know that was the top, close to the top. To their credit, they wanted to come in a way that was authentic through other existing brands, like native brands that had an identity, a following, and they really followed our lead. So it was G and I with Ben Mayer White, and Ben was also a big fan of Bored Ape Yacht Club, which they launched 3 weeks before us. This was right as that insane bull run was starting to happen. Of course, you'd already had the crazy Beeple sale. Um, Beeple
Right.
had sort of had his run up. We'd had the first Punk's run up into Christie's, where they got to like 18, 20 ETH floor. And then there was like a massive crater. And that's like right around when Punk's launched. And so we were talking to Adidas as like literally a couple month old companies. I reached out to Gordon at BAYC. I had like talked to him maybe like a couple times in Discord or on Twitter or something. Um, because we were doing issue 2 involving holders of BAYC NFTs like the apes. We had like a March Madness type bracket, and we were going to leverage their IP rights to have them be in the comic. So I had been talking to Gordon, and I brought him into the conversation. And then he got Garga, and from there it was just like strategizing, how do we get this in the door? And I guess they had already started to build a group internally that was like analyzing the space. It was like a very small sort of like task force internally. But of course, they had to run it up to much more senior executive level positions. And it just seemed very clear that they were determined to make this happen. That team continued to grow. And it was really sort of hard to believe at the time when we ended up launching. It was actually very timely enough. Our big announcement with the huge Twitter campaign was at Art Basel 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago, Art Basel.
Dang.
Seems like a very short period of time when you phrase it that way, but it seems like a lifetime ago at this point. Um, yeah, and when that was announced, still no one knew who Garga or Gordon or any of those guys were. They hadn't doxed yet. They wouldn't dox for like another couple months. Um, so I remember our our big photo was a bunch of us sitting on a couch in a hotel at Basel, and G Money, Garga, and Gordon were literally drawn in as cartoons. G also hadn't doxed yet. And now, of course, everybody knows what all these guys look like, their names and everything. But they were all still completely anonymous. And we were launching a global marketing campaign with Adidas. It was wild. But props to them for being willing to sort of go out on a limb and try something big. Getting to see the merch we created with them in World Cup commercials, seeing the Bayern players wearing it. It's sort of hard to believe. And now we of course have like custom stuff. I have a hoodie that's like the entire pattern is the Punk's comic page with all of
Nice.
our characters rocking the gear. Um, yeah,
It, I gotta
came a
say,
long way very fast.
and I think that's what like attracts me so much and really does keep me in this space is it's like a mix of two things. It's number one, like the opportunity that you have to like
Mhm.
grow your own brand and grow your, even just one's personal brand, but also if you have that element of relentlessness, hunger to like continue to build and build, like at some point you're going to get noticed, and for some people it's a lot sooner. For you guys, congrats again. That's, I remember that was literally like,
Mhm.
what do you call it? It was like really like a turning moment, I think, for the space, because that showed that Web 2 was interested in crypto, whether it
Right.
was in the veil of an NFTs or art or whatever it may be. Like that was, yeah, insane, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I can't believe we pulled it off. Like I said, we launched in May, and by December, that had already happened. So the the run up you can have just financially and in life is unparalleled crypto versus really anywhere else. Um, it was shocking to me when I just said 2 years ago, because truly it feels like a different lifetime. And to put it in the context of like 6 months after launching the company, that's
Right.
even more crazy. Um, and all of this with a very new technology that, of course, still continues to have question marks from a regulatory perspective. And so, we spent a lot of money and really tried. Uh, Pixel Vault actually took on a lot of the regulatory and legal risks associated with that drop. Everybody was actually contracted with us to help, get the deal done from the Adidas side, because at that point, none of these corporates were going that far out on a limb. Really, around the same time, Nike bought Artifact. And so, of course, the Nike and Adidas
Uh,
battle continues on into eternity. Um, but yeah, I mean, both those companies deserve big props for embracing it, taking the risk, going out on a limb, and uh, I think that was a tremendous success. I know Adidas has now continued that project on with um, their own sort of like PFP project and building it across the brand. So if you're into sports or if you're into more of a cultural side, they're trying to find a place for all types of people. But of course, still growing pains for all of us as we try and find exactly the right way to make utility and things like that make sense now in a post royalties world, which
100%.
has been very difficult. In addition to the decreased activity in the markets, creator royalties went away. And so you've seen tons of companies, projects go under. Gordon himself from Yuga last night was talking about this a lot. I know people are working on trying to create solutions. I think Magic Eden is coming out with some sort of create royalty enforcement. I don't know how they're going to accomplish that. We'll see. It's like, okay, you're going to limit the transfer of NFTs, because otherwise I don't know how we do that. But
yeah,
I'm looking forward to watching the technical advancement, because right now it's sort of an honor system.
Yeah.
I've been outspoken against it, so of course I always pay mine, but I don't really blame anybody at this point for not paying their royalty. That's what has become the norm. And of course, before, the norm was to honor the royalty. But if you want to see these companies succeed in an atypical space that can provide atypical utility and access and support the arts, make actual, like, set aside companies like Pixel Vault or Yuga or whoever it may be, which are, yes, art focused, but companies, and just like truly individual artists. That last bull run really empowered art as like a real career. Before, you had to be like an extreme outlier to make a living through your art. And of course, it's still hard to get noticed, but I think it opened up a lot of opportunities in the arts. And so hate to see that fall by the wayside with what's happened with creator royalties, but ultimately I think it'll get figured out.
No, 100%. And I guess just to comment on the royalty stuff, I think the biggest problem with it was that probably a lot of these creators who had onboarded themselves from kind of, Web 2, just creating art, in real life, and kind of going this digital route and feeling the empowerment of generating revenue on stuff that they couldn't have previously. The biggest slap was when somehow it was like disabled like that. Because I'm sure that in their mind, it's like crypto enables this function. So to me, it's not something that someone can just take away. Someone that was taken away because people realized, oh, so it's not hard coded or it's not on chain. I think that's what really messed them up. And I think this time around, you're probably going to start seeing protocols with this, like, one or the other hard coded in, or even, I'll be honest, probably chains, like dedicated chains with this stuff, like royalties directly integrated. It has to happen, one or the other.
Yeah. I mean, the Reboot Protocol, it's not a royalty enforcement, but, and this is jumping way ahead into what we're doing with Arbitrum, but
let's do it. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, similar to an arcade.
Okay.
Like when you go into an arcade and you use your tickets to buy a prize, our prizes are collateralized by GG, the native token of the protocol. And there's a spread between what you pay for the item and what gets collateralized. And that helps the game developer to function, similar to what a royalty would have done in, call it NFTs 1.0. I think you'll start finding companies, protocols, chains, finding these creative ways to support the actual underlying businesses in a way that's additive. So in this case, yes, in that process, the company is able to make a little bit of money for it to be a sustainable business. We have 60 employees and really need to grow to accomplish what we're trying to do. But also in that process, and the reason why it's worth it for a user, it's no longer an illiquid JPEG, right? That was the problem in the last cycle. You buy a JPEG, let's say you want to use it for games. Okay, so you buy this asset on the blockchain. Okay, well, who's your counterparty? Who are you going to sell that to get liquidity? Well, if every item is collateralized, you no longer have to worry about that. GG in, GG out. So in that process, you're getting some security knowing that these tokens that you're putting in to get this cool in-game asset or flare, skill, whatever it may be, there's always going to be that amount of GG held in that item. And so you don't have to find another party to this exchange to buy your NFT from you. You can just burn it and collect the GG back. So now we have a two-sided exchange of value where previously it was like, oh, okay, great. I'm this, art collector and I'm going to pay my royalty to the artist. And me personally, I truly feel good about that because their work brings me joy. I like seeing them win as I win, especially if I'm selling it for a profit.
Yeah.
Of course, it only makes logical sense that the artist should participate in that. Well, move to us. Great. User buys an item. They're willing to pay that spread because now they have a valuable in-game asset and they know that they can get the tokens back out after they're done playing with that asset. So I think you're going to see a lot of creative ways for these companies to sort of support themselves and build in the necessary fee structures for themselves to operate while adding to the experience of the user rather than just having it be a thing that no one really knows why it exists other than having it be sort of status quo or the norm.
Interesting. And so where does, I guess so in this case, Battle Plan is kind of almost like a great contextualization of that alongside a great game. Would that be a good way to kind of put it?
Yeah, so Battle Plan is the flagship game that's going to launch the Reboot Protocol. And on top of being a very fun game, is intended to show off the many different features that the protocol supports. So you have an NFT, you have a meta hero. Well, come later in 2024, there are about 10,000 meta heroes, but we want millions of people ultimately to be playing this game. Well, how do you reward the NFT holder for having said asset and putting that money down? But how do you still open it up to the masses? Well, you can imagine putting them in a pool available to be drafted. So staking of sorts, though it doesn't feel like staking to the end user. You keep your meta hero trained so that they're ready for battle. And then ultimately users can go in, draft their team, pick your meta hero, and you get a small spread of their winnings. And so great, now you have the ability based on your actions to generate fees from holding said assets without it being a security. And I think that was a lot of the problem stemming from 2021 is, okay, great, like now make number go up. And it's like, no, like I think you want a security and that's not what this is. Yeah. So you've had to see the growing pains there because, companies, especially those operating in the United States, want to be following the laws, which are admittedly gray area. We've spent millions of dollars trying to stay within said gray area laws. But I think this will be a huge sort of beacon to show what is possible because, call it traditional world, understands the concept of an arcade. And so playing a game of skill, getting out tickets, getting something of value, playing with said item, and then selling it back out for something that is liquid on an exchange. Very clearly not a security, but still providing the type of utility and value potential that NFT buyers in the previous bull run were looking for. So I'm hopeful for this next run because now you're finally starting to see product rather than concept. And so hopefully the people that have stuck it out all this time will be rewarded for their loyalty and dealing with all the BS of the last couple of years.
And I think it's worth noting here that like the amount of attention to detail that's required to create essentially Reboot that appeals to developers and game devs in particular to build on top of, and Battle Plan to be fun enough for regular people to play, but also interesting enough for NFT kind of buyers or traders to kind of come in and start utilizing too. Like that takes a lot of
And
detail.
there's a huge like DeFi component. I mean, every asset
Yeah,
in the market is on a VRGDA. So it's 100% driven by supply and demand. So prices of items fluctuate based
right,
on the meta at any given time, right? If a certain skill is more OP, you're going to naturally see that the price of that item in the shop increase. And if something is less favored, it'll decrease in price until it reaches equilibrium. So I think even if you aren't a quote unquote traditional gamer, there are a lot of ways that Battle Plan will appeal to just the traditional crypto trader or DeFi participant because of the ways that you can sort of analyze these markets and sort of place your quote unquote bets accordingly. Buying up skills that they expect to appreciate, cornering the market on some sort of item. It's been really fun to watch it play out in our most recent update to the closed beta. Because now there's full functionality there. Just the tokens have no actual real world value because they're just on testnet. But yeah, the community loves it. Sort of that easy to play, hard to master with a really complex sort of economy attached to it. Yeah, should be a lot of fun. Really, really proud of the work our team has done, and I really can't take credit for the protocol or the game. I just I'll take credit for finding like really awesome people that are as relentless as I am and keeping the team together through what have been some really rough times. I think that's where I shine is operational biz dev and sort of leading our team. But Aaron, Chuba, they're really the brains behind the protocol. We have an amazing game development team that was built from the ground up. First, I had to just find Goose, which thank God we found him. And then from there, we've just been able to find incredibly talented game developers. We've built out a full sort of like Web3 native development team. I'd say probably 2/3 of our overall team is on the dev side, whether it be game or Solidity, full stack development. And I try and keep morale high, keep us in the public eye, try and make business development deals. And sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong, but I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. And so, yeah, 2022, we had to undo a lot of what was done there, but we course corrected, and I think we're all the stronger for it.
100%. And everything you mentioned, by the way, like what your job entails, to me that's like the requirements essentially to be an entrepreneur. Like you need all those qualities to be able to keep a team together, cultivate a team. Like that's really hard. That's actually extremely hard, harder than people think, I think.
My bio says wearer of many hats.
Yeah.
But I know just enough about basically everybody else's job,
Right.
Without being the subject matter expert in any one of them.
What's it called again? There's a word for that. It's like, oh man,
Jack of all trades, master of none.
That's what it is. Yeah, jack of all
See,
trades.
I say wearer of many hats because
Right.
literally, I'm always wearing a hat. I grew up playing baseball. It's just always been a thing for me. So, wearer of many hats. Another pun.
So what would you say then, from your perspective? I can add it from like a tech or community level, but from your perspective, definitely, like what was probably the most important thing for the launch of Battle Plan?
I mean, so many things have had to come together just right. Fortunately, obviously, the market is starting to look better. We were going to be launching in this time frame regardless, but thank God it's not the depths of the bear market that we saw as recently as 4 or 6 months ago. The what is most important? I mean, again, I'll sort of lean on my team and the extension of my team to what we call our core committee.
Hmm.
We have 146 characters that are at the center of Punks and MetaHero. And in 2021, we would airdrop these to holders of specific NFTs of ours. And we gave away the core characters of our IP. At the time, they were trading for like ridiculous amounts of money. I don't know, a couple $100,000. This month, we've had a bunch of trades in like the 20 ETH-ish range. So like still really awesome. And we're just getting back off the ground. So knock on wood, hopefully up from here. But the holders of these NFTs have the chance to join sort of like a private council where they're getting real time information from me on like business deals, things that we're planning, questions. And so it's like having a very intertwined focus group of like your like most committed like community participants having like behind the scenes access that they can't share because they're under NDA. So, in certain periods of time, we restrict their ability to trade because we don't want them trading NFTs with, quote unquote inside information. Obviously a gray area, but we just want to like avoid any problems where we can. But they've been incredible in one, helping us steer and make the right directions. Really though, like fine tuning our like the details of business points, knowing how the community will react to different things. Of course, we all stay like really in tune with our community, but no one knows better than this group. And having them to help relay some of the stuff that I can't talk about because it's in process. So, they don't tell the exact details, but other participants, token holders, they trust that when they hear from someone that's actually in their shoes, like, hey, like there's a good plan. We've seen it. Like the building process in crypto is so difficult to manage because crypto moves at light speed, but product takes time. And so having that sort of extension of the company really into the community where there's sort of like a different level of trust between community members versus between company and community. That's been huge as we've sort of re-envisioned what Pixel Vault looks like from 2021 bull market Pixel Vault to hopefully 2024 bull market Pixel Vault. These companies look almost nothing alike. And that transition, those growing pains are hard to get through. So this core committee has been really, really important in helping the messaging, the fine details as we try and make these pivots. And, just working with our team as we try to tackle pretty big hurdles that I don't think most companies, at least in the NFT space, have really tried to take on. There's a lot of like surface level projects that haven't really undertaken anything huge. Right. That's cool. If the whole thing is like, okay, this is art and we're just people that like this art and we're going to vibe together, great. But we always wanted to be about like product and pushing the envelope from a technology perspective. And that's the kind of holder that we've attracted is these people that are like interested in game theory and trading. And we've gotten a lot of shit for being too complicated. We're working on that. But I think
welcome to the club.
The complexity is, yeah, exactly. The complexity is going to see its way through to this game, which is going to be an incredibly complex undertaking, but not feel complex when you actually play it. So knock on wood, I think we've got it right this time, and very excited to get it out more broadly speaking.
On the topic of game theory, can we talk a little bit about Wolf.game?
Sure.
Maybe breaking down a little bit
That
of
was an
like
exciting, yeah.
maybe break down the history for us a little bit of kind of how it came about and then what brought you
Sure.
guys to actually acquiring it. Yeah.
Yeah. So really it dates back all the way to prior to the formation of Pixel Vault. Again, tying into Top Shot. At the time, Pranksy pulled this massive,
Oh my God.
like, I want to say like $1 million NFT trade with this new account on Twitter. Like, I'm talking maybe 100 followers. And actually, the account was set up specifically at Pranksy's request so that they could sort of like publicize this like huge blockbuster trade. It was a bunch of CryptoPunks for a bunch of like really, really rare Top Shot moments. And the counterparty to Pranksy was, of course, none other than Beanie Maxi himself, Beanie. And at the time, I had sort of like a small bankroll, but was really interested in sort of like picking the brains of these people that were making these huge financial transactions in NFTs. And even now, I bet you can still reach a lot of people, most of the people that you wouldn't expect to be able to. But I had a lot of success just sort of cold reaching out to people like DC Investor and at the time Beanie, and understanding their thought processes for how they were looking at these assets, trading them, etc. And I found Beanie to be like a really, really intelligent guy. A lot of people have a lot of opinions about him, but even his harshest critics, the ones that actually know him, would all say he's very smart. So I met Beanie. Of course, we fast forward, we start Punk's comic. Beanie started to sort of veer off and get into other projects as well, because I was running the company, and Beanie was, of course, like a very loud voice for Pixel Vault, but he wasn't, handling anything day to day. Sort of like advising. He loves game theoretical decisions. Like you can see, I don't know the true origin stories of Wolf.game. They're like very secretive in sort of like all things
Yeah.
Wolf.game. In fact, Shep still hasn't been doxxed. Nobody knows who Shep is. So like crazy that all of these people have been able to maintain their anonymity, but you can see a lot of Beanie's stamp on early Wolf.game stuff. And I remember not being involved with the company directly, but obviously being involved with Beanie at the time, and this idea of stealing other people's NFTs through gameplay. Like I just loved. It's like the gambler in me, the risk taker. It just seemed like a really fun and interesting new use for NFTs. It's like
Totally.
they call Wolf.game like a risk protocol. And so obviously Wolf.game took the world by storm. I want to say Wolf.game launched in like October, November of 21. So maybe like 6 months behind PV. Tons of really, really prominent early holders. I remember Gary V and G Money and, now Seed Phrase, like all these dudes were like battling an alpha game, which was, I want to say first half of 2022. It's just a really funny like ecosystem where they're just like such strong personalities and rivalries, and it's different than I think really any other NFT community due to like the level of competition there. And on top of that, the level of building outside of the core team, they're just community members that have built tons of like incredibly useful tools that like most people that play the game today actually leverage, and
No.
they have no affiliation with the team. So there's something really special there in this sort of crazed uh, group of people that are just like diehard Wolf.game fans. Um, I saw one guy had a child maybe like a couple months ago and named his kid Shepley after
Oh my
Shep
god.
from Wolf.game. So like this group is just built different, but it's a community that is perfect for the Reboot Protocol, like these games of skill, and leveraging sort of this idea of being a risk protocol. And 𝗗𝗜𝗦𝗟𝗔𝗜𝗠𝗘𝗥, our head of gaming, he thinks really similarly to sort of the brain trust of Wolf.game. Um, Maybe back right around when we hired Aaron, maybe a couple months in, so call it April or May of 22, we had started talking to Wolf.game, their leadership team, about a merger, PV and Wolf.game. Because those guys, I don't think they really liked running the business of Wolf.game, but they liked, building and all of the game theory. But trust me, most of the time my job is very unglamorous, not fun.
I'm sure.
Calls with legal, accounting, CPAs. That stuff gets tiring. And it's a decently small team. And, of course, maintaining a community is a lot of work. And we have the scale to do it much more efficiently. So we started the conversations back then, but just based on valuations at the time, there was no way to realistically make it make sense. And then 𝗗𝗜𝗦 reached out to me, I don't know, maybe like 6 months ago, and said like, hey, would you be interested in acquiring Wolf.game? And it took a few iterations of like ask versus what I thought the reality of what the deal would have to look like would be.
Right.
But it just seemed so blatantly obvious to me that it would be a perfect sort of like second star title for the Reboot Protocol, that we had to get it done. And so now we're still on what we're calling Wolf.game 1.0, trying to fix some of the holes in the economy that exist in its current state. And we've just stood up what we're calling the Farmhands Council, which is kind of like the core committee on the original PV side, where holders of the A8s, which are the premium assets, they get the opportunity to participate. Or we also had this runoff where people were running like these public campaigns on Twitter, and like it was really funny. But more than 50% of all tokens voted in this like runoff, right, to be elected to the Farmhands Council. So right now we're going through the process with them of creating this idea of Wolf.game 2.0. And we have a proposal that we're about to present to them over the next month. And then they're going to iterate alongside of us, and we'll be launching Wolf.game 2.0 next year on the protocol.
You're building a platform that allows for the creation of sustainable in-game economies that, by the way, if anyone's ever played like an MMORPG, all of them end up just inflating to like an infinite amount, like RuneScape, Destiny. A big fan of MMORPGs. So, and it's kind of crazy when you think about it, how no one has mastered the in-game economy. But it feels like Reboot is essentially
extremely difficult. I mean, yeah, look at just the economy generally speaking. look at our current inflationary landscape. So it's very difficult to balance economies. It was something that back in the start of Pixel Vault, 𝗗𝗜𝗦 and I would sort of do together. He has a particular mind for it, and now, Aaron is call him a gigabrain. I don't know. I don't know how best to frame the way his mind works, but um, his brother was actually responsible for the creation of DirectX, which would become Xbox, basically the entire
Wow.
strategy for Microsoft's gaming.
Yeah.
And so Aaron, being the younger brother, was around basically the titans of the gaming industry since like his young teen years. And so, he was creating AAA titles at age 18. He's gotten like post grad degrees in decentralized, um, uh, like a focus on blockchain, uh, predating Bitcoin.
Wow.
So
That's
he's
crazy.
got this sort of strange confluence of game knowledge and cryptography knowledge. That was the word I was going for. So like
Okay.
decentralized
Yeah.
cryptographic protocols. That was like what he was getting his PhD in. And most recently, his company was sold to Penn National Gaming, and his partner runs um, all of Penn's sort of like casino, this ESPN bet that they recently just launched. So he's got like a very diverse background that is sort of perfect for the creation of these in-game economies. That's what he's always specialized in. Um, but beyond just Aaron and the protocol, there are a lot of other layers in understanding the psychology of crypto participants and NFT collectors and these communities. And so we actually have long had this running call within Pixelvault called Tokenomics, and we would hold it twice a week. And people from all over the organization, like literally down to artists who just are long-time crypto participants, join, and we all sort of iterate on fun ideas for NFT collections, or like, oh, like what sort of crazy burn mechanism could we implement here? And so it's a really fun combination of people from a lot of different walks of life that sort of layer on top of what is the Goose Gigabrain Reboot Protocol.
I love that.
Yeah,
That's incredible. Yeah. I think
yeah,
I think one thing I would love to touch on, if you don't mind, then is why you guys ended up picking Arbitrum for Reboot Battle Plan.
yeah, yeah. So it was we had narrowed it down to Polygon, Avalanche, and Arbitrum.
Okay.
Um, Polygon was at the point in time where we were making this final decision, having a lot of success with large corporate partnerships. They had like just landed like a ton of like heavy hitters by name. Um,
Right.
but dating back to some of the issues with Zedrun, the block reorgs,
I
when
remember that.
you're dealing with transactions of real monetary value, we just simply could not risk the block reorg situation. And then Avalanche, we really liked this idea of the subnets. And now Arbitrum, with these orbit chains, now has sort of like a very similar conceptual component. And that was still in its early phases at the time where we had actually committed to working to Arbitrum. But very clearly, there was in our mind like a very clear different level of committedness to working with partners. And so technology aside, and I think Arbitrum still wins out just tech for tech, but technology aside, you want to work with one, people you like, and two, people that give you the actual respect of like timely responses, attentiveness, and from day one. So one of the advisors to Reboot is Keyboard Monkey.
Of course.
He has a strong relationship with 𝗗𝗔𝗜𝗏. We got talking to 𝗗𝗔𝗏. 𝗗𝗔𝗏 introduced us to the rest of the team over at Arbitrum, and it was just very, felt like you were among friends. And that's the key to any successful biz dev person. So
Right.
salute to 𝗗𝗔𝗏. Like, he did a good job there. But, from that point, the tech has to stand on its own. And Nova has been so incredible to work on because we've been marketing this recently, but we've just in our closed beta test already done more than 1 million transactions on Nova. We're about 10% of Nova's overall transactional count month over month right now. And this is just closed beta, but there's one signature up front. And then even though the game is heavily on chain, you as a user would have absolutely no idea that transactions are taking place. And that is how we're going to get the mainstream user leveraging blockchain technology, because they'll see the value that it gives, i.e. true ownership, transferability of items, retention of value, etc. But without the clunkiness of, let's be honest, like most crypto interactions these days. Like, I was wrapping a CryptoPunk the other day using the contract, and it's just like crypto has a real UI UX problem, especially for like very highly valued assets. I'm just thinking about it like, Jesus, this CryptoPunk hoodie is worth like, I don't know, $600,000+, and like any small fuck up here, and I'm just wrecked, totally wrecked, irreversibly. So, what we're doing with Reboot, what we're doing with Arbitrum is going to improve that. And I think the success of this closed beta really shows that, because you've seen the tweets from our community. No one has any idea that many transactions are actually taking place during one like full game, right. A battle plan. And so I think as things grow, maybe there's an opportunity for an Orbit chain, or maybe we stick on Nova. But it's been really great seeing the technical progress on the Arbitrum side, and where we've had needs, the team has always helped us find partners or assisted us in finding ways to scale solutions to accommodate the protocol, made the right introductions to potential partners. And that was certainly not the experience I was having at Avalanche. No shade, but
no shade, right?
Just saying.
Honestly, I will say I'm a fan of the Polygon guys. I'm a fan of the Avalanche guys. Yeah, definitely no shade. In all reality, but
I like Avalanche. It's just I prefer Arb.
There you go. Me too. Well, and I think
one's good, the other is better. I'll just say that.
Thank you for saying that, because I can't. Like, I think that's where like my willingness to work here, and I've been here for about 2.5 years before we launched Arbitrum 1, and I think that's like the number one thing that I've noticed with our team.
Super OG Arbitrum. That's awesome.
Dude, it's funny, like back then no one really cared. People thought Polygon was the only L2, and no, exactly. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've stayed on here since, and I think part of that is just because I've seen that, like, not only do we put like it's always been my personal mission to put other people first, because at the end of the day, you put someone else first, and chances are maybe they'll kind of return that favor. Right. But number two,
100%. I was saying this to someone today, like, what you put out into the world is what you get back. And so, selflessness tends to be the best policy.
No, 100%. And to me, that's not, you can't teach that. I think that's something that you just have baked
Yeah.
into you as a person, and that in addition to just the immense like brain power going on in like the tech side. No idea how any of these guys do it,
Hmm.
but what I will say is that I think there are many teams that build, and they build not only the underlying tech, but sometimes they creep a little bit too far into the app layer. Whereas
Hmm.
I feel like I think we're probably one of the few teams that have only focused on the underlying tech that allows for innovation like Reboot to exist. Right? I mean, like, not to say that
Hmm.
Reboot isn't possible without Arbitrum, but it's that I think Arbitrum's tech allows Reboot to really see it's like whatever you can imagine in your head, like like you were saying,
100%.
like a chain
Yeah.
that reorgs every once in a
Provide
while.
us
It's not
the
gonna work.
platform to shine. Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, so that to me, that's the coolest thing. So, like, when I see stuff like Reboot, I'm just like, yo, this is insane. And especially when you guys are talking about the transactions amount, 10% of Nova transactions is insane. That's incredible.
Yeah.
you know,
It's been awesome to see unfold. I mean, we had very, very high hopes for it, and it certainly exceeded all of our expectations. And so, I
amazing.
mean, imagine what can happen when we open it up to a broad audience. I've been talking with Bryson, who's a big gaming streamer in the space,
Yeah.
and he was really early to Axie Infinity, and he's an advisor to the protocol, but
Oh,
uh, seeing seeing his excitement shift, like I can read people when they're sort of checking a box, like any good business person is going to show a level of respect, right? But
right.
like Bryson's a very authentic dude, and I wanted him to give like a really true impression of the game, and just like watching the wheels turning in his head as he started playing it, and then talking to him after the fact, like some of those early Axie vibes where it's an IP that has mass appeal, right? People like
Of course.
superheroes and kind of these battle games, and similar to Axie, like kind of like Pokemon on the blockchain. That was like the big kind of the buzzword at the time. And him being early to Axie and now being involved with Battle Plan, just to see his excitement has been awesome for me. Trying to solve some of the pain points that Axie went through in trying to onboard mass audiences in the last cycle. Um, so yeah, I think we've got a lot of incredible people around the table, a lot of learnings to really help us sort of attack gaming in a way that's never been done before. And it's been fun seeing like all of the other projects popping up, um, like pretty successful gaming launches over the last 6 months, and
Oh
it'll be
yeah.
fun watching that continue to grow. Yeah.
All right. Got a couple last questions here for you. Some of them are
Sure.
related, some of them aren't. Solana. I noticed you're a big fan of Solana on the timeline.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually kind of agree that the Solana community is extremely strong, especially the past couple of weeks have been great for them. What appeals to you about
Right.
Solana? I just have to ask.
So, I mean, I do think Solana has better UX than ETH, like undoubtedly. Uh,
Okay.
Everything's easier to use. Transactions are so much faster. You don't feel like you're about to make a fatal mistake at every turn. So I think from like a noob onboarding perspective, Solana is much easier than how I was onboarded into NFTs from Top Shot to um, ETH layer one NFTs.
Right.
So there's that. Also, you know, now very infamously, let's say, there was the tweet heard round the world from SBF that said, I'll buy all the soul you want at $3 and then you can go fuck
Right.
off. And that day, this was in my run up to actually founding Pixel Vault. I put like literally my whole bag into Solana. So
Okay.
I bought at $3, sold it all at about 22, uh,
And
bought back 3 or 4 times as much once Pixel Vault had found success, probably in like the $60 range. And then I sold it all between 180 and 220 and bought my first home. So Solana will
damn.
always
Okay.
have like a very special place in my heart for those reasons.
Okay.
Um,
That's sick.
but there is sort of the community right now is very strong. You're seeing the NFT ecosystem picking up in a way that I don't think it did during the last cycle. Of course, you know, Frank came from Solana. Like there were sort of like the early bubblings of like a strong NFT community off the back end of the previous bull market, and actually through the bear, I think Solana, held its own. But man, like there's just a crazy following for Solana. I think it's easy to use. Obviously, it doesn't have a lot of the decentralization
Right.
uh, pros that other solutions have. But if we're talking about onboarding the masses, I think Solana has a good shot of doing so. But
Sweet. No.
at the end of the
Yeah.
day, if you're going to love a token, it's because number go up. So, and number has always gone up for me with Solana. So it has a special place in my heart, and it's treating me very well so far this cycle as well. So I've been joking with my wife that if we have a daughter, so my wife is very pregnant right now. So I might be launching
Okay.
the game, the
Congrats.
protocol, and having a baby at the same time. Um,
Stressful.
but I've been
But good.
joking that like if we have a daughter as a second child, that I might have to name her Solana. She
Oh my
hasn't
God.
taken to it, but I think it's kind of a cool daughter's name. But we'll see. I don't think I'll get
I
that
think
one passed, but
it's a cool. I think it's a cool name if it wasn't a blockchain.
right,
If it wasn't
right.
already a blockchain.
Just have a nice.
Um.
I'm Sean Solana. I don't know.
Yeah.
Has a nice ring to it.
Oh man. Okay. Okay. I got one last question for you. I thought that was a great answer, by the way. Um, I heard that you own a football club. Can you kind of explain what
I
that
do.
means? Like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So probably one of the world's greatest top signals, WAGMI United, was a really, really, really exciting concept that has gone awry in almost every way possible. Um, Obviously, the pain of the NFT market going down really sort of upended a lot of the monetization strategies for the club. Because if you're going to own a League Two English football club, uh, most of them lose about £500,000 a year. It's very
Dang.
hard to run a profitable club. So unless you know you're a big celebrity and can make sure that your team has a show on Netflix, like all of these teams are running at a deficit. So you want to be top of the table, get promoted, and if you get promoted, then they're ridiculously great investments because going League Two to League One to Championship. I mean, they get progressively much more valuable. And so if we could have executed it properly, I think it would have really shown sort of the power of. We really wanted it to be a DAO buying the club. We sort of struggled to get that through the regulatory bodies that manage English football. So it ended up being sort of like DAO light. But a lot of really influential people within Web3 are part owners in the club. Something I'm super proud of, but it's been very rocky. Unfortunately, something that wasn't revealed during due diligence. Right when we took over the club, there was this huge controversy. Like the former manager was like just like a complete racist, doing like horrible things within the locker room. So we had a major like cultural problem with the club. And so imagine buying a brand new club and having that be like within the first 2 weeks. So it was
Jesus.
immediate turmoil, trying to reinstall like good moral compass within this club. Of course, we're looked at, the Americans coming in and ruining English football. So it was like a very, very, very tumultuous year. We were almost relegated last year. Fortunately, we started this season performing very well. Now we're sort of like mid-table. And a lot of the NFT component of it all has been stripped away, and now it's really just being run like a traditional English club. We tried to be a little bit edgier first year. If the team had performed, you could have rolled with some of what's the TV show?
Was it like?
I'm mind blanking.
Oh my god! It's
on Apple Plus.
I don't watch TV. That's the problem.
God, I'm gonna kick myself for mind blanking this. Anyway, basically, like a former like American coach goes to coach English football and knows like nothing about the sport,
right?
But like he's a lovable guy. Fuck. What is his name? I would Google it, but oh well. Yeah, I mean, we thought that there were ways that we could have really leaned into social media and excite and like really excited the fan base. It did not work
Not
out.
really.
Preston, Sports Cheetah, co-founder of PV, he really took it on the chin because he was sort of like the face of the organization. He comes from like a sports analytics and betting background. So he was really heavily involved with, trying to optimize the club. I think we've made a lot of the right decisions from an analytics perspective, but the decision that the analytics would suggest don't always necessarily marry with what the fans would want. Like our analytics have shown that some of the fans' favorite players were actually not good by our metrics. And so, trading them away was not popular, but has gotten some results. So, I mean, next time you see me or someone else buying a sports team, just consider that to be the top signal for the next bull market and just sell it all and collect your profits and buy back lower.
Listen, dude, if
Mistakes
nothing
were made
else,
in a wallet that I controlled.
Too soon. No. That's it's still the coolest thing to say that you own a sports club. Out of you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It may be stressful.
I mean,
but
I've been a huge sports fan since I was a little kid, so it's been a dream come true.
It's crazy.
I got to partner with Adidas. I got to partner with Major League Baseball. I got to partner with Dana White in the UFC. So I've gotten to do a lot of really, really, really amazing things in the sports world that I never would have imagined as part of this, owning Crawley at the very top of that list. But it's very difficult. So like all of the Monday morning quarterbacks you see on Twitter acting like, oh, like I could run this club so much better. No, you couldn't. It's very difficult. So much respect to Preston, Eben, the rest of the group that's been overseeing Crawley. They have not had an easy time of it with the fans, social media, traditional media. But fortunately, the club's performing much better. So much like how my Twitter sentiment rides with NFT prices and crypto prices, so too their sentiment rides with the performance of the club. So I guess you just gotta take the good with the bad.
It's just how it is, dude. That's life, honestly. At the end of the day, yeah.
I know.
Well, Sean, GFunk, it's been an extreme pleasure having you on. I appreciate you, of course, giving us your story and your insights. And yeah, man, look forward to collabing in the future and seeing what's next for Reboot.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Happy to be working with the team at Arbitrum and excited for this to launch. And hopefully, this time, maybe next year, we're having another discussion about the tremendous growth of Reboot and all the different games that we've brought to the ecosystem, ours and otherwise. I've got irons in the fire as we speak. So hopefully, it all plays out according to plan.
Amen to that, man. Thanks for coming on again. Thank you for watching this week's episode of Beneath the Layers. If you're interested in listening to more, make sure to check us out on YouTube or on any of the other major podcasting platforms. Also, we're hiring. So if you're interested in working on cutting edge tech, scaling Ethereum, etc., make sure to apply at jobs.lever.co/Offchain Labs. Additionally, a disclaimer. Nothing in this podcast should be taken or understood as financial advice of any kind, and all opinions expressed by the host, myself, or the guests are solely their opinions, my opinions, and do not reflect the opinions of Offchain Labs as a company. All that being said, thank you for watching. See you guys in the next one.